Welcome to another episode of Altitude Advantage. I am your team reporter, Elisa Hernandez, alongside our lead writer on DenverBroncos.com, Aric DiLalla. It is Dub Day, our third one in a row, celebrating here in the Broncos podcast studio. And yesterday's game on Sunday, Week 5 versus the Raiders, was a big one. It was a throwback to the 1977 season. It was alumni weekend, a lot of legends on the field pregame and at halftime. 24 hours later, we love to hear your thoughts. I saw you already watching the game again, so I can attest that he does do this. But 24 hours later, a Broncos win. What were your key takeaways?
Yeah, I think that there were a few things. One, it's nice when the weekend goes according to plan, right? And it's been a few years since the Broncos have been able to kind of put it all together against the Raiders. Just snapped an 8-game streak against the Raiders. They'd never beaten Las Vegas since the team moved from Oakland to Las Vegas. Nice to just do this with Riley Odom, Steve Foley, Randy Gradishar, this 1977 team in attendance to kind of uphold their tradition, if you will. I thought that was really impressive. Obviously, a game that could have gone the Raiders' way. It was a kind of a slow start for the Broncos, but your best players have to make big-time plays. That's what Pat Surtain II did with his pick six. Mm-hmm. And then from there, and obviously we'll get more into that, but from there, the Broncos kind of took over the football game, and especially in the second half, they rolled. They really routed the Raiders until that late drive. It was the Broncos' biggest win over the Raiders in about 10 years, ended up being their biggest since the end of 2016. So I was just impressed by the way that they took advantage of their opportunity once they got back to 10-10. They really took control. They didn't beat themselves. And in this league, there are only going to be so many games where you don't have to battle out a one-possession game. And for the Broncos to find a way to put this one away and have it be a relatively stress-free win in the second half was a big deal. Broncos have now won. They're now 4-3 in the division under Sean Payton. I think before that, over the last 3 years, they were 3-15. So that speaks to the rapid improvement. I saw a stat that over the last 17 games, the Broncos are 10-7. So it just, I know it doesn't happen overnight, but the change is happening. The culture is building. The turnaround that people are so desperate for seems to be taking place. The Broncos, heading into Sunday Night Football, were the 5 seed in the AFC, the way too early AFC playoff picture, currently the 6 seed after the Steelers loss. But they're right in this mix. They're in that group of 3-2 teams. They've won 3 in a row. You got to feel pretty good about yourself after you don't just win. It's hard to win games by 15, 16 points in this league. And for the Broncos to go on a 34-0 run and really dominate the Raiders in the second half, it was good to see, and it was fun. So got to keep it rolling, but a good one yesterday. Yeah,
Pat Surtain, the second after the game, said that he feels the momentum rising. And I think that is something that this team can attest to, that this momentum swing has been kicked off since week 1. And they've been saying it, and we've been talking about it a lot on the podcast, momentum. But you do start to feel it now, right? It's their third win in a row. The running game is really starting to get going here. You have Javonte Williams, Jaleel McLaughlin, those guys really having some big runs and kind of stringing some things together.
Yeah, the run game has really gotten going here over the last 3 weeks. The blocking has been good. Obviously, the Broncos suffered some offensive line injuries. Sean Payton on Monday said they're still figuring out kind of what that looks like. Mm-hmm. But we'll have to see. Luke Wattenberg exited the game. Alex Palczewski exited the game. Garrett Bowles briefly exited the game. So for them to keep that going with some different pieces in there, we'll have to see how that plays out ahead of Week 6. Sean Payton did say he likes the depth. I think you've seen a new and improved or maybe kind of looking like his old self in Javonte Williams.
Yeah.
Both on the ground, in the pass game, pass pro. I mean, when he's on the field, he can really do all 3 of those things. So he's been impressive. I think, as we've heard Sean Payton say again and again, it's about painting a picture around Bo Nix. And the way the Broncos are running the football right now and playing defense, it kind of limits. Bo obviously showed in the second half what he can do, but I think when you can run the ball well and play good defense, it limits what he has to do, and that's part of the reason why the Broncos are 3-2.
Yeah, another big part of that is just the way that Bo has been able to distribute the ball. Yesterday's game, he hit 11 different players,
Yep.
and he was really able to kind of get everyone involved on offense, which is That's good to do because you kind of keep the defense on their toes. Earlier today, Adam Troutman said that you know Max Crosby's going to get what he gets, right? Because he's Max Crosby. He's that kind of player. But the way they're able to limit, the way that he was able to disrupt their offense, and the way that Bo really didn't make any mistakes yesterday. Obviously, the couple overthrown balls maybe here or there, but he was really effective in kind of making those big plays and kind of getting that to really spark the offense in the second half.
Yeah, even when the Broncos struggled a little bit in the first half, and there was the field goal drive, there was the end of half 2 minute and really kind of like a 30-second drive where he finds Troy Franklin. Those are winning plays. And I think when Sean Payton was asked Sunday afternoon, kind of what is it about Bo? And it's like, well, he finds ways to win, and he's led his team to wins, led his teams to scoring drives. Finding a way to hit Lil Jordan Humphrey that sets up a field goal, finding a way to hit Troy Franklin and get up there and clock the ball at the end of the first half. Those plays matter in the first half, even when things aren't going well, to be able to get 6 points, and then you've obviously got the 7 points from Pat Surtain. That's a big deal. And I think we talked about it yesterday, was like, for as poorly as things started for the Broncos to still be up 13-10, that's demoralizing for the Raiders, certainly. And then in the second half, like you mentioned, I think you saw Bo kind of turn it on, that throw to Josh Reynolds, the touchdown. It was a great throw, perfectly placed. He went up, he gave Cortland kind of that back shoulder throw on the high-pointed jump ball on the left sideline. That was a nice throw. And then just some opportunities where, delivering a screen pass to Javonte that he takes, 20, 30 yards, finding Adam Troutman for a big gainer. There's still, as Sean Payton said Monday, probably 3 or 4 plays that Bo's going to look at and say, man, I wish I'd hit on that one. And certainly had a chance to connect deep to Troy Franklin. Troy said he wasn't able to hang on. Bo said he probably overthrew it. But obviously that would have been a big play. So some chances still for improvement, which is good. But I think each week, as Sean Payton has said, you're seeing Bo more and more comfortable with protections in terms of what defense are we facing, what protection do I need to get us in terms of command of the offense, all those sorts of things. And he was sacked 3 times on Sunday, but again, did not turn the ball over. And now 3 consecutive games after throwing 4 interceptions in the first 2 games, he hasn't thrown a pick over the last 3. So knock on wood that keeps going. But when you, even when things aren't going well, if you can avoid throwing that back-breaking interception, it can change the outcome of the game. And listen, the Raiders weren't doing a whole lot early in the third quarter, but they're still in the game until Minshew throws another bad interception, until Aiden O'Connell throws an interception when he goes in there. And so for Bo to avoid that, that's just as helpful sometimes as making those big plays, as avoiding the terrible ones. And as Sean Payton said on Monday, with Bo Nix, you don't feel like there's this risk of a minus play. And last year, particularly with sacks, we hear Sean talk about this all the time. Broncos were right up there with a team being sacked the most in the league. This year, they're near the very bottom. And so that's just one way that Bo's kind of shown what he can do. And what I think 117 quarterback rating this week, his best game as a pro, 2 touchdown passes, a touchdown on the ground. He's coming along. And the fact that Elisa wins are coming with it. And because there was a chance that this season, maybe he shows some flashes, but you're not able to make it happen immediately. The fact that decent quarterback play, improved quarterback play, really good defense is putting you in a place where you're 3-2 and right in the mix with Bo as a rookie is really encouraging.
So Adam Troutman and Brandon Jones talked to the media earlier today, and Brandon Jones really mentioned how it is helpful and he has all the confidence in the world in Bo Nix to know that he has those game-winning drives in him, or he can drive down the field or be successful in the 2-minute drills. So I think for a defense, especially when they know, if we can just get a stop, even if our offense is struggling early, we know that our offense has what it takes to go down and win a game. And Zach Allen spoke about that too. He's like, when you look back, we weren't worried because we weren't getting blown out by teams. They were 1-possession games that we knew once things really started clicking, we were going to get things going. And now you see that with being you go on a really tough road trip. You win both of those games. Then you come home. You win your first home game. Josh Reynolds gets his first touchdown as a Bronco. And he, joked after and in the locker room with the media saying like, it was nice. And he's like, it's nice to see that play come off the sheet. And because, he slid all the way into Broncos country. But you could tell that he's just excited to really see this offense clicking in a way that he's spoken about, really getting that connection going with Bo Nix. Yeah,
I mean, it'll continue to develop. Obviously, Bo will get better and better each week that he plays. I do think that there is already this excitement about what he's able to do, and you got to keep it going. And we'll see what happens here. But, yeah, for him to perform, obviously, first quarterback, we mentioned this yesterday, first rookie quarterback in franchise history to win 3 in a row.
Yeah.
Kind of dealt passes to all those different guys. He's playing at a level right now where you can win football games, especially when this defense plays the way it does. And yesterday, they were a big reason why the Broncos won again.
Yeah. Added motivation when you have Orange Crush and you have all these legends coming back to share the festivities of Alumni Weekend. Pat Surtain had a very special moment with Champ Bailey during pregame. They actually swapped jerseys. I talked to Pat about that after the game, and he said it was a legendary moment. And he said that's a jersey that has to stand on its own. That's something he has to frame separately. It has its own little corner because, he talked about his relationship with Champ and the fact that they talk about football from time and time again, but they also just have a strong connection. And I think that's one of the beauties of Alumni Weekend is that you have these players come back and it adds extra motivation because you can't have Orange Crush at the stadium for a home game and the defense doesn't show out, and they for sure showed out on Sunday.
Yeah, but I mean, there's been you're right that like that's what you should do, but there's been times I think that's what's made it difficult over this past 8-year stretch, 7-year stretch. Is that there's been times where you've had these legends back, or you've had Mike Shanahan back, and talk to the team, or you've had these moments where Steve Atwater or Peyton Manning or whoever is going in the Ring of Fame, and you don't find a way to win the football game, and that's tough. And so I think it speaks to, and Sean Payton said this after the game, we've got to start winning here at home for these fans. And so the fact that those alumni were back and you had guys like Randy Gradishar, Steve Foley, Louis Wright, Tom Jackson, Barney Chavin, a bunch of guys particularly from that defense that were there to then go out and perform and play the way they did on defense, I thought was spectacular. A little bit of a tough start, and Brandon Jones talked Monday about how those first couple of drives, they were trying to adjust to what the Raiders were going to do without Davante Adams.
Yeah.
They prepped for Davante Adams to play, which I think is the right move, even though it's reported that he's not going to play. Yeah. You don't want him to figure something out Saturday, and he says, okay, I'm good to go.
I mean, speaking of that really quick, Max Crosby didn't practice for a few days. Next thing you know, he was playing. So.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, you've got to be ready for those guys. So I think the approach of let's prepare as if Davante's playing and then figure it out when he's not, that's better than the alternative, right? And so, after that initial drive, the throw to Brock Bowers, PJ Locke probably just missed Times' jump. That drive I don't think was particularly concerning. It really was the drive where Surtain got the interception, where
pivotal point in the game.
Very pivotal.
Game changing.
The Raiders are moving the ball again. It's one of their better drives from a stack and plays together, 1st and goal at the 5, and Surtain makes the play of his career, runs it all the way back the other way. Instead of being down 17-3, it's now 10-10. It changed the whole mood, the whole tenor of the game.
Yeah.
And then the Raiders really didn't do anything after that. 7 possessions after that and 22 yards, 2 first downs. They started getting after the quarterback, sacking Gardner Minshew. Like I said, Riley Moss picks him off.
Yeah. First interception of his career.
Yep.
That was a big moment for him.
And you could see from where I was in the press box, he read it the entire way. And he was backpedaling, and he almost, you're like, is he going to actually throw it over here? Because Riley had perfect position the entire time. It was clear from the second Minshew threw the ball was going to be picked off. So that was an impressive moment. And then they stayed after him. And listen, people will say, hey, the Broncos scored 34 points because they got good field position. Well, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do is play complementary football. If the defense gives you the ball on the other team's side of the field, score touchdowns.
Yeah.
And the Broncos took a game that was Yeah, well, it wasn't over, but 20-10, it was still kind of within striking distance, and they put it out of reach. So those were key moments. One other offensive moment that we didn't mention, but to go up 20-10 instead of 16-10 with that diving touchdown catch and run by Jaleel McLaughlin, that was a big moment too. And these are little things here or there, Elisa, that I don't know, like in the past, and I keep saying this, and I know it's somewhat unfair to like keep bringing up the past, but there are things that I'm not sure this team in previous years makes those plays. And maybe they settle for 3 there and you leave the Raiders in the game, right? So those are things that they're now putting teams away. As I mentioned, the Sean Payton coach team, 4-3 in the division, which when you compare to how this team had performed the last several years before that, a stark improvement. And this defense, little rough there early, but got it going and helped the Broncos win the game. Definitely.
And again, Pat Surtain really continues to be just so effective. That was his first career win over the Raiders, which sounds crazy, right? But it is what it is. And it was his first career win over the Raiders. He said it felt really good, especially to do it on that day. Obviously, I'm rocking my Denver Broncos Champ Bailey shirt because that is the added motivation. And for him to have an 100-yard pick six, I joked with him. I said, "Did you watch yourself on Thunder Vision?" And he just like smiled really big. He's like, I actually didn't watch myself to the very end. I didn't watch myself till I was done." So, but he said that he read it. He saw that the ball was underthrown, and he's like, "I knew that I was gonna get this play. It fell right into my lap, and it was just green grass all the way." And so you could sense that excitement of, he was like with the throwback jerseys, having this moment, because when you think of those jerseys, there's a lot of iconic moments that come to mind. And now you have this moment of Pat Surtain picking off the Raiders, running it back, wearing the throwback jerseys in reference to when that team beat the Raiders to win the AFC Championship.
Yeah, and that AFC Championship win, to get to their first Super Bowl, I mean, it wouldn't have been an immersive experience without the win as well. So that was really nice to see. And Pat is rightfully getting his flowers, right? You know, Kay Adams was talking about him being this generation's Darrelle Revis, being the best player or best cornerback in the league of this generation. People are, not that they weren't already taking notice, but I think this feels like, even though he's already had his breakout season, a season where Pat takes another step to a probably a champ-esque level. I know it's crazy to say, but the way he's playing right now is spectacular, and certainly a privilege for us to get to be up close and watch it. And when you've got perhaps the best corner in the game and a defense playing like that and an offense that's finding its way and doing enough, it is a recipe, I think, to be in the mix the rest of the season. So excited to see how it goes. Yeah, Richard Sherman also gave him his props. He tweeted that Pat is the best CB in the NFL. Simple. A lot of praise come from Richard Sherman. And just combining the first 4 weeks, not including the Raiders game, but the NFL tweeted out something. It was like the Pat effect: 87 routes, 7 catches, 75 yards, 0 TDs allowed. Like, that stat line is insane. He has more touchdowns himself now than he's given up. That's pretty good when that's your stat line. When you can say, I've scored more touchdowns than I've allowed, that's good. That is very, very good. Well, before we get out of here, obviously we're going to get into this much more detail on Thursday's podcast, but you get your first divisional win. It's at home. And Pat talked about that after the game and said it's important to get these divisional wins because it sets you up for what you're trying to do later in the season. And I think you had mentioned, too, that any team that really does anything in the playoffs, et cetera, has to have a good record in the division. You actually tweeted out the AFC standings this morning as a little good morning, happy Dub Day, Broncos country. Yeah, you've got to be good in your division. And listen, this is the next one. And I talked about this last year when the Broncos were on the 5-game winning streak, is like there's a privilege and a certain amount of pressure that comes with playing well. And when if you're, 2-6 and you win a football game, it's exciting, but the next one isn't quite as exciting because there's not as much at stake. You're still 3-6 or whatever. Yeah. And knock on wood now, hopefully the Broncos don't end up there and I've just jinxed everything. So I don't think that's going to happen based on how they're playing. But it will. But when you're last year, when you're on that win streak, you beat the Chiefs. Okay, now the game against the Bills, like becomes a very big game, and then you beat them. Now the game against I think it was Browns and Vikings, then that becomes a big game. Then the game against the Texans becomes a big game. And like each game becomes the biggest game of the year. And that's part of like what makes it fun to win. And it also makes it a little nerve wracking because every game matters. And it's like this past week, it really mattered for the Broncos to beat the Raiders and snap that streak. And they've traditionally, for whatever reason, over the last 4 years, not played particularly well against the Raiders. And they push all that aside. They got a win. They broke the streak. They improved to 3-2, which, as we talked about last Thursday, is a big difference in your playoff chances, being 3-2 versus 2-3. And now all that means is that a game against the Chargers is even more important than it was, right? Because now you can go to 4-2 and put some distance between yourself and 500. It would be a game, or it is a game against a team that is right there in the wild card hunt and probably will be all season long. So head to head against division teams, against AFC teams is always going to matter. And because you won, the Broncos now put themselves in a position where the next one matters even more. So a big one on Sunday against Justin Herbert and the Chargers. They are obviously a little banged up, but a tough physical team under Jim Harbaugh that's probably not going to beat themselves. And the Broncos have had some success here recently against LA, obviously swept them last year, but it's going to be a tough test, and the Broncos are really going to have to fight to earn another win, and that makes it exciting is that chance to get this win streak to 4, chance to go to 2-0 in the division. A lot at stake. We'll talk more about it Thursday, but a big one.
A couple guys in the locker room, Javonte, as well as Josh Reynolds, had all mentioned like this mentality of just on to the next. And he was like, and we're going to rejoice this. We're going to enjoy this win, but it's on to the next. Like they have this mindset of not getting too ahead of themselves. I think that's something that they kind of all talk about in the locker room post game. Like every single interview that I was kind of listening in on, every guy's like, we can't get too comfortable. We can't get caught up in the hype of winning 3 in a row because we want to win 4 in a row. We want to win 5 in a row because we believe that we're a good enough team to do that. And to kind of hear that from different guys on the team, from offense to defense, it really shows how this team is really on the same page. And Sunday is going to be a lot of fun, but we're going to talk a lot more about that on Thursday's episode. So we appreciate you guys listening to another great episode of Altitude Advantage with your host and team reporter Elisa Hernandez and our lead writer Aric DiLalla. Dub Day. Let's go celebrate some more.
Let's go celebrate.